So it's January of 2023, and true to form, I am a little late on the whole New Year's post about, what I did in 2022 and what my goals are for 2023. I would have posted it right around New Year, but I was out of town. So rather than rush like a maniac to get it posted when I get home, and recognizing that YouTube is not my full-time job and never will be, and that I don't really want it to be, I'm posting it now because why not? So in 2022, I decided to take the plunge and start writing my first novel. I completed the first draft of Trophy Braid in March and then went through several edits. I knew that I needed to let it sit and marinate for a while so that I could see it with fresh eyes. So while I was doing that, rather than just sit around and do nothing, I started writing some more. As things go and you're sort of writing, you get these ideas and you sort of scribble things in the margin like, wouldn't it be cool if, and then you realize like that doesn't really go in this story, but it could go over here. So the plan is now that there will be 5 or 6 books set in Tiranoc that will each be either standalone or duology. The Mordavac story will be a duology. And I kind of sort of already know where that's going. I have maybe 10 or 15,000 words written in the second Mordavac story just to kind of make sure that I tend to write things simultaneously. I know that people tell you not to do that, but I find that because all of these stories are intended to be interlaced, because the lore is meant to overlap, because they are stories happening somewhat simultaneously, and because this happened in this book, this happens in this book, and they sort of bump into each other and collide and then go their separate ways. And you will actually see those things happening in the books. You don't need to read each book to get the story, but if you do, you'll be able to make connections that other people can't make. Anyway, the concept is cool. We'll see if I'm able to pull it off, but I have found that the best way to do that accurately, to make sure that I am not missing things that are important connections between the books, is to sort of write them both simultaneously to the points that they touch, and then I can set the second one aside and carry on with the first one. So I've done that in a few different places, and that's why I have so many stories started. So yeah, I have 5 of the Tiranoc books started. Trophy Braid's rewrite, which has been a massive endeavor. It is harder to rewrite it than it was to write it the first time. And some of that's because I'm much more critical about what I'm putting into it. And some of that's because I know how hard it was to get it down the first time. And the idea of tearing it out and throwing it away is more challenging than I expected. I'm not really a sentimental person. So I'm not attached to the characters or attached to the words in a way that is particularly sentimental. What I am attached to is the time that it took to put them on the page. The thing is, if it's not good or it's not in line with the way that the story's meant to go, the fact that it took a lot of time to write doesn't matter. And it's just sort of getting myself past that every day, knowing that I'm going to go in and delete 5,000 words today, and those words are going to need to be replaced with something new. That has proved more challenging than I anticipated. The rewrite has been significantly harder for me than the original writing, which is weird because I don't find editing more difficult, but taking this 45,000 word book up to, I think it's now at like 78,000 words, has been really challenging for me. Other things that I've done to sort of help the process along, I met a bunch of people that are in the writing community. I have taken a ton of classes in the past 12 months. Some of them have been useful, some of them have not. I've watched a ridiculous amount of YouTube content, both book reviewers saying what they liked and didn't like, which I find really helpful. I've watched a bunch of writing YouTube channels, AuthorTube channels. So there's a few channels that I find really have really solid practical advice, really actionable advice, things that you can take from the video and immediately apply to your writing or immediately apply to your editing process. I don't have any personal connection to them. I just find them really useful sources of information and sources of people who have actually done the thing and are then sharing the wisdom that they've learned. There's also a bunch of agent channels or people who used to be agents that I found really helpful, but in a different way and for different reasons. And I'm not quite there in my journey yet, so I find that I'll have to go back and rewatch a lot of that content. So I've done a bunch of stuff that didn't cost any money, but I have also invested in my process. I bought a bunch of books in the genre I'm writing so that I have other people's work to look at, because I think it's important that you understand when you're writing a fantasy book, you need to know what a fantasy book looks like. And trying to go from memory based on when the last time I read something like that, I don't think that that's helpful. I think that reading actively while you're writing is really useful. Not necessarily from a style perspective, because I find that the way that somebody writes, I can always tell when I've swapped books because the style that I'm writing in changes. And a lot of that I think is just because I'm a new writer. And I haven't quite nailed down the way that I sound yet. But the ability to craft a story and what you like and don't like when you're reading, the things that really draw you in, the characters that really get you hooked, and also the things that don't work for you. If you're reading a book and you bump into something that you know is wrong, you're like, that's not what that city looks like, or that's not how that works, and it pulls you out of the story. Those things are important too, because watching somebody else's mistakes and being able to learn from them means that you don't have to make them yourself. So I bought a bunch of books. I'm still in the process of reading them. Some of them I've really liked. Some of them I have really not. Some of them... Are you good? Some of them have been not great books, but I've enjoyed them anyway. And some of them have been perfectly well written, and I haven't really liked them. So working through analyzing all of that and sort of the whys behind it is helping me craft my own stories. Other things I paid for were things like critique services and business services, like setting up an LLC and, filing taxes and things like that. Things like cover art, when I was looking at self-publishing Trophy Braid and I got scammed, and I made a video about that. So if you're interested in watching sort of what happened and why that was such a horrible experience, I'll link that on the screen and put that down below. But some of the things that I invested my money in were really worthwhile, and I'm getting a lot out of them, and some of them weren't. Some of the things I got ripped off, and sometimes I was able to get my money back, and sometimes I wasn't. So I may make videos later on in the year about that. Where I spent my money when it was worthwhile, and where I spent my money and I kind of got ripped off, or I did get ripped off, very obviously got ripped off. Anyway, 2022 was really expensive, and for the most part, it was a net gain for me. For the most part, I feel like I am more knowledgeable, more educated, more prepared to carry on with this endeavor that I've set myself on. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and of course, if you like the way that I present information, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. You can find all of my social media contacts in the description, and of course, if you want to keep up with me and the progress I'm making on my current novel, you can do that at effywritesbooks.com. Thank you so much for watching, have an excellent day, and I'll see you next time.